Trump v. Biden, presidential debate number 1, recap. Let's go. That was a train wreck. If Joe Biden survives that, I have lost all faith in humanity and politics. There is no way that he can go to the election with that sort of a performance. There's no way that he can continue to campaign and people take him seriously. He didn't know where he was. He was confused the whole time. He could hardly string a sentence together. He was very subdued. I thought he would have been on uppers and he would have been jumping out of his skin. But no, he was very quiet compared to what he usually is. He had no passion about him. He had no steely insults that he was throwing at Donald Trump. I thought they would have pumped him up with medication, some sort of steroid to get him alive. But no, it went the other way. I think he was on downers, some sort of tranquilizer. It was not the right sort of medication for him. It really didn't benefit his performance. The whole CNN debate was structured so that Joe Biden would benefit from it. It didn't work. You know, they had no audience. They had the mics turned off whenever the other one was speaking. They had 1 minute uninterrupted talking time each, which was supposed to benefit Biden, but he couldn't fill the time up because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So instead he filled the time with a blubbering mess, which actually didn't make sense, which had people then criticizing him. So that completely backfired on him. He was actually caught having a little nana nap, a little micro sleep in the middle of one of Trump's speeches. And now after he self-combusted, the Democrats have come out and said, no, he had a cold. That's their justification for this terrible Biden performance. He had a cold. I don't care if he had a cold. You're the president of the United States. I don't even believe he had a cold, by the way. But even if he had a cold, you're the president of the United States. He had days to prepare for this. They knew that he wouldn't be able to do it, so that they whisked him off. They cleared his schedule. They whisked him off to Camp David. He had days. I think it was about 5 days, maybe even longer, to prepare for this debate. They locked him down. I imagine he would have got a lot of rest. He didn't have anything else to do. And they just kept feeding him information. He was studying like he was studying for the most important exam of his life. But still, even with all that preparation, by the way, Donald Trump this entire week in the lead up has been out campaigning still. He's been talking to fans, going to rallies. It seemed like he didn't prepare at all. Maybe he prepared a few hours at night, but with his packed schedule, I imagine he went in pretty blind. And still, he wiped the floor with Joe Biden. That just shows how mentally incapacitated Joe Biden is at the moment. Let's look at a few instances where Joe Biden trailed off. He had no idea what he was saying, and Donald Trump did not let him get away with it.
Continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to...
That, I would say, is the highlight of the entire night. That's the one that's going viral on Twitter. Everyone's talking about it because Donald Trump said what we were all thinking. This is what Joe Biden does all the time. He mumbles his way through things. He doesn't have a coherent sentence, but no one ever pulls him up on it. And Donald Trump did tonight. He said it right there. I don't know what he was saying towards the end of that, and I don't think he did either. Let's look at the second one.
Every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Oh my God, that was painful to watch. You physically cringe, don't you? You just... It's a mix of feeling really sorry for him and being really angry that this guy is the best that America and the world can come up with in a president. And I love Donald Trump's facial expressions in these. He's just giving him the time to explode on himself. And this is when the mic's being turned off and having that uninterrupted time to speak is really working in Donald Trump's favor. Because he isn't interrupting. He doesn't want to interrupt. The only person who can interrupt is the moderator. And that's exactly what Jake Tapper, I think it was, did at the end there. He jumped in and he saved Joe Biden. Let's take a look at another one. There are no shortage of these.
Where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers. They'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period.
25, 24 million, billion. Poor thing, he doesn't have a grasp on the numbers. He's all over the place. He's so confused. Now let's take a look at actually a really terrible lie that Joe Biden said in this debate. He was talking about how he's the only president that has no casualties in war under his watch, which is, it's just not true. Let me show you first.
Truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world.
That's not true. That's a complete lie, and he's being roasted for that all over the internet because, well, it's very disrespectful for the 13 troops who died when Joe Biden pulled the military out of Afghanistan. Now, that's really bad for a president to say because it shows that he has dismissed these deaths. He doesn't remember them, and maybe that's because he's cognitively impaired, but as the president, you need to give respect and grace to those people who've passed, especially when they did so protecting the nation. Now, that is disgusting, and he rightly is being crucified for it on social media. Now, let's talk about the aftermath of it. The amount of reaction on X was huge. I want to show you, though, this leaked footage of straight after the debate where Jill Biden went on stage to congratulate Joe Biden, even though he probably shouldn't be congratulated. And then look what happens.
President Trump walking off the stage. The first debate of the 2024 campaign and the earliest presidential debate ever, now in the books and in front of the voters. Tonight, along with Aaron Burnett, the first word on what those voters might make of it from our political professionals, from our CNN Flash poll and swing state focus group. We'll be talking to surrogates, including Vice President Harris, getting fact checks from our Daniel Dale, and new reporting from inside both campaigns. With me here, CNN political commentator Scott Jen.
This got me. This made me feel terrible for Joe Biden and Jill Biden. Jill Biden, this footage has cemented her as a terrible human being. She is evil. She is enabling elder abuse. She shuffles him off the stage. He can't move by himself. Lucky he only had to stand in a solitary position the entire time. If he had to walk around, he wouldn't have been able to. He needs a carer to take his hand and lead him around the stage. He gets off the stage so slowly. The guy is in slow motion. He's running at half speed. He can't step down steps without her. We saw him a couple of days ago trying to get into an SUV. He couldn't get up without someone propping him up. He is literally at the stage where he can't walk around by himself. And they're pushing him to be president again. It's disgusting. We've said it's elder abuse time and time again. And lucky now that we have this footage from CNN so no one can suggest it's a cheap fake or a deep fake, Karine Jean-Pierre. And then after on CNN, Joy Reid, who's usually the most pro-Biden person, she was forced to admit that, look, the Democrats, she was on the phone to the Democrats during that performance and they didn't like it. Look at what she said.
And a slight cold as well. So I understand not feeling well. And, obviously Joe Biden comes in with certain deficits. He has a stutter. It is more difficult for him to communicate for that reason. So there's a lot to mitigate the way that he speaks, and you can understand it. And we've observed him for a long time. That said, I too was on the phone throughout much of the debate with Obama world people, with Democrats, with people who are political operatives, with campaign operatives. My phone really never stopped buzzing throughout. And the universal reaction was somewhere approaching panic. The people who were texting with me were very concerned about President Biden seeming extremely feeble, seeming extremely weak. And I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. President Biden had one job tonight, and it was one primary job. And yes, it was to litigate Donald Trump's, criminality and all of those things. But he had to settle his own party. Mm-hmm. He needed to settle Democrats. Democrats, they always talk about Democrats are bedwetters and Democrats are always panicking. Yes, Democrats are always panicking. They're always scared, right? They're always thinking they're going to lose. Like, Democrats are very pessimistic. This is just neurotic. Who they are. They're neurotic. But Joe Biden's job was to reassure them tonight. His job was to calm his party, to make them feel that, yes, I can do this. I have 4 more years in me. I have the ability and the stamina and the strength to do 4 more years. He did not do that. He did the opposite of that. He made them more panicked. The people who were texting me were even more panicked. They actually expected it to be better than it was. And now they're in I won't say a full-fledged panic, but it's getting there.
And are people that you're talking to are expressing these concerns, are these people who are involved in Democratic politics, or
Yes.
are these liberals watching TV?
These are not liberals watching TV. These are campaign people. These are people who are either Democratic operatives. These are people who are former, sort of Obama world administration people. These are people who are in the business.
Okay.
So the civilians are also panicking. They're also texting me, but I was trying to kind of ignore the civilians and really talk to the campaign folks. People are, they're worried, and there is, it's not a full drumbeat yet, but there is talk of, look, here's the thing. I know a lot of politicians. I just happen to know a lot of them at a lot of levels. They all believe that they have a unique ability to run the race that they passionately want to run. And I know for a fact that Joe Biden passionately believes that he is the only person who can beat Donald Trump, and he has evidence of it because he did it before.
Right.
He knows that he has certain demographic strengths that Donald Trump cannot counter. He is the real working class white guy that's actually Donald Trump's base, so he knows how to talk to them. He believes that he is the only person that can do it. The problem is, after tonight, his party doesn't believe that.
I want to hear.
And then more commentary from CNN. Everything is pointing to Joe Biden being replaced after this performance. I feel like this was the final straw. This was his one shot at being able to go through to November and campaign as the nominee. But after this, even CNN is suggesting that he will be replaced.
Minutes into the debate, and it continues right now. It involves party strategists. It involves elected officials. It involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket. And they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say, in moments in the debate later, the president got better and got his footing, but then at the end, even his closing statement was a little...
I don't know, this one's chaotic. It's an absolute mess, and I guess we'll see what happens. Even Kamala Harris, VP.
John King has described a panic inside the Democratic Party right now because of President Biden's performance in tonight's debate. He's been hearing from Democratic lawmakers and others around the country. Some within your own party are wondering if President Biden should even step aside. What do you say to that?
Listen, first of all, what we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people. Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And what became very clear through the course of the night is that Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American people.
She tried to spin it as best that she could, but even she had to admit that it was a very slow start. Yes, slow, that's an understatement. Joe Biden literally fell asleep. Look, the whole thing was a train wreck for Joe Biden, absolute train wreck. I feel sorry for him now more than I did before after seeing this. He has aged about 5 to 10 years in the space of a week since we last saw him in his last public performance. It's absolutely sad, and I am very interested to see what's going to happen next.